Welcome to A Dose of Feel Good. I'm your host, Whitney Bischoff, and today we are talking about Dream Again. You can see full show notes at doseofeelgood.my.canva.site. Now let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of Dose of Feel Good. And I don't know about y'all, but it has been a week. So I hope that you all are okay with it. But if you follow the projected episodes that I have out on the website, I shifted a little bit. So originally we were going to do Protect Your Energy this week, and I'm going to put that off. We are going to cover that topic. We're going to do that next week, so make sure you tune in and join us next week for that really great topic. But I wanted to shift, and this week we're going to be talking about Dream Again. I just really needed a pick-me-up this week, and don't worry, I will share all of the reasons why when we get into our story and why this is important. But it was just a week, and I don't know if you're there as well, but I just really felt it was important to be real, and I could use a dose of feel good this week. So we're going to talk about what it means to dream again and how we really encourage ourselves when it's hard to find that dose of feel good, to really encourage ourselves to dream again, especially when it's really difficult to do so. And I think this is really important, and at least what I really need to hear right now is that, you know, life is going to throw twists and turns at us. Often when we least expect it to, right? We can't anticipate when things might happen. We can't always, put all of the steps into place to really protect ourselves from when those challenges happen. They're just going to happen. And as scary as that is, I think that's where a lot of anxiety and the unknowns come from. The reality is that we can let life happen to us in those moments, or we can choose to be the authors of our own destiny. And I'm sure you're over there saying, well, that's easy for you to say. But I promise we will get there. And I have felt like life has been lifing lately, and it can feel like life is happening to us, and we are just a passenger on this ship, airplane, whatever you want to call it, and we are just the innocent bystanders. And I think when we get to that point, like at least lately, like I feel like I'm just floating here and just existing, and that is not a fun place to be in. And I think when we're in that state, the first things that we let go is our ability to dream of what is possible, or even what's available outside of this moment, because we're just so stuck because it feels like it's just one thing after another. So much so that I had someone tell me this week, they were like, wow, Whitney, like another thing. And I was like, yep. Like I don't even know how to respond to that anymore. And so I think it's easy to just put all of the things that we want to do on the back burner because we just get stuck in this survival mode. And even in that survival mode, like even pulling ourselves out of that feels like a chore, because it just feels like one thing after another. And even when it feels like it's not that big of a deal sometimes of like the things that are happening, it feels like this just monstrous thing, one thing after another. But I started to, towards the end of this week, really kind of think of like, what would happen if I used this moment as a sign to just throw caution to the wind and dive into the things that I genuinely want to do and know that I'm capable of, right? So just really thinking of that shift of like, sure, I could sit and be stuck in this moment, or I'm going to use this to my advantage and choose to dream again and reinvent what is possible and rise to the occasion, because what do I have to lose at this point? And I think you can hear, just like even in my voice, right? Like the shift of that, of, being stuck and down and just like, ugh, versus I'm just going to go and do the thing, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen, but at least I'm going to be excited about it. And I think just this reminder that the challenges and transitions of life will always happen, and those are inevitable. And I think when we choose to use those moments to dream again and give ourselves space to make that happen, we remind ourselves what it feels like to know what is possible. And when we haven't had those moments to let life happen to us, or even have those things thrown at us, we can get stuck in the day-to-day or the monotony. And even if we are like, we have those dreams, like we're putting them on the back burner. We're not going after them wholeheartedly because we have our routines. We have our things that we're like, we feel good about those, which is great. But sometimes, and I've said this over and over to people, I'm like, sometimes we just need the door like slammed in our face in order to dream again. And I think when we think of that opportunity almost rather than the loss, I think that's a really cool way to really pivot in those moments. So how did we get here? Where did the shift happen? Well, I know I've said this, so I professionally work for a very small nonprofit. We do suicide prevention work in the campus space. In South Dakota, suicide is the leading cause of death for young people. And so we do a lot of really great prevention work, just connecting peers to their peers, really building spaces where people feel supported and like they belong, and just everyday skills that I think are really powerful. And we've seen it be really powerful. Anyways, I could go on and on. I won't. But we found out this week that our nonprofit is dissolving. And while, yes, that means that there's a lot of uncertainty of, will I have a job? When will we find out when our last paycheck will be? Like, there's those uncertain elements. I think on a larger scale, like just knowing what we do is so important, and to have that go away and not know, is it going to continue? Is someone else going to take it on? What's that going to look like? All of those things, right? Like just so much, so fast, right? And I was in a meeting also this week and just talking about how I'm part of a different board. It's a volunteer role. And I was like, oh, I won't be at our next meeting because I will be over at Mayo Clinic for a health thing. And they were like, wow, add that to your list of things. I was like, yeah. And I just realized like there's a lot that I'm navigating. And I just really started to like question, not even question, like just realize that like, you know, what I've always wanted to do is just, I want to do things that impact people. And I don't really care how that happens, but like I am a very, very passionate person, and so much of who I am and what I want to do is I just want people to know that who you are matters, right? Like you have so many great things that you bring to the plate. And I think people just need to hear that more. And I just want to be a vessel that reminds people of that. And wherever that lands, like, I don't really care how I get there. I just want to get there. And obviously, like, you need to provide for your family and bring in, you have to work to do that. So I think there was that element of like, how is this all going to look? But at the end of the day, like, I just want to be doing something that matters and impacts people. And I realized like the possibilities are endless. But I've been applying to so many jobs, even prior to this, just because there was so much unknowns working in the nonprofit field right now. And I haven't heard anything, like not a thing. And so you question of like, what am I doing? Like, what is the point of all of this, right? And so it's almost like this whiplash at the moment of like, I'm like, do I open my own business to do these things? Like, how do I convince people that like what I do is important and that I am actually very good at this and I can do this program. Like I am good at it. And anyways, and it's like how do I find the vessel to do that? And it was just like so much back and forth of like, I just want to find a place to land to be able to do it. And I had a friend who took me out for dinner and drinks, and they were like, we just need to get you out and get you out of your head a little bit. And ironically, if you follow me on social media, and if you listen to the episode For Good, that is my entire life philosophy. And he's been trying to convince me to get it tattooed, and I did, kind of on a whim. But it was this reminder, honestly, to dream again and to have that as the anchor of everything that I do, that it's going to work out. And no matter what those dreams look like, the reminder that as long as I'm doing it for good, to impact people and to know that everything that I do is centered around that, then I'm going to be okay. And that I'm rolling in the right direction. And I think that really helped me to run passionately in whatever direction that looks like, and just to think of all of those possibilities. And I started to really realize that like this opens the door to a variety of pieces that maybe I would have been closed off to if this wouldn't have happened. So I think there's this impact of acknowledging that like we are going to feel stuck when life happens to us. And it's okay to grieve when those crashes happen. I think I'm somebody that I can get stuck there though. And I have to force myself to dream outside of that, because we have to turn those bottom moments into opportunities, because the reality is that when we hit the bottom, the good news is that we can only go up from there. So why would we limit ourselves? Why would we not dream about what is possible and take that chance on ourselves and relight that fire that, you know, maybe went out, but like, let's reignite that and just see what's possible. Because the reality is that we're the only ones that have the power to reinvest in ourselves. No one else is going to do it for us. So we have to take that step and to dream, and we owe it to ourselves to make that happen. Because this reality is, and the truth is, that this season, whatever that looks like, doesn't have to define you. It doesn't have to define me. What does define us is how fiercely we rise from this opportunity and give ourselves the space to dream again of what is possible. And I know, at least where I'm at right now, that's what I'm going to choose to do. Of like, I'm going to open the doors and give myself the space to choose to run in that direction, and know that I feel so much better when I focus on, I don't know which door I'm going to walk through, but think of all the possibilities, right? Like when I dream again of what is possible, there are so many possibilities. And I think there's so much hope in that too. And I think when I focus on those opportunities, I feel better. And if that's what's going to make me feel better in these moments, and that's what I'm going to choose to focus on, then that's that small dose of feel good that we're all looking for. So how do we actually put this into practice? So first, I think give yourself space to understand where you're at right now. I know for me in this moment, like I'm grieving the fact that there were so many people that were impacted by what I did. And when that goes away, it's like, oh, it's a punch to the gut. It really is. And so like understanding that like that's okay, right? When that potentially goes away, that's where that grief is coming from. And so when I think of dreaming again, that call to action is like, I'm understanding where that's coming from and how can I channel that into new opportunities. So our second call to action is aligning your fire, right? So talking about like, what is it that lights you up inside? And like I said, for me, it's impacting people. And so what can I do to put that into practice? And then feeling that, right? So I've been giving out kindness cards, and I can do that. I can do that in a variety of ways. And so I'm now intentionally finding spaces where I can do that. So I know that it's impacting people, and I don't have to have an organized space to do that. As I think of what is possible, there are other opportunities to do that. But in the moment, like, what can I do to feel that fire in the moment if and or those opportunities where I previously felt it went away? And then the third piece is, what are your wildest dreams? Like, what does that look like? And then also, how can you make that realistic in this moment? And I think once you've put those two things together, share what that looks like and take a step. It might seem outrageous. I know I shared mine with my close group of friends. And as I wrote it all down, and it was a lot, it was a little ADHD brain, and I just kept going and going and going. But when I did, I felt so much better because I was like, I could tell I was passionate about something. And whether it comes to fruition or not, that's a completely separate piece. But I could feel myself not selling myself short. And I needed that. I needed that in that moment, that like when I shared with other people that like, this is what my dream would look like. And like, I'm tangibly writing it down of like, this is possible. Like if I take a chance, this is actually possible. And I know it could make a difference. And the last piece of tying this all together is then acknowledging, like, how do you feel when you are acknowledging what those dreams look like and you're sharing those? And what's the difference of that feeling versus the feeling of just sitting and feeling stuck in the moment? Like, what's the difference between that? And at least for me, like, I feel better, and at least like I'm pulling myself out of there and I'm taking steps forward. And that's really the power of dreaming again. So that's where we're going to wrap up this week. So I thank you for going with me on the journey this week, for letting me shift a little bit. I know I feel better just from recording this week, and wherever you're at, or save this episode for, at the place where inevitably life is going to throw things at us, and maybe it'll help you in those moments as well. Otherwise, stay tuned. Join us again next week. We will get back to protect your energy. Until then, have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you are feeling ready to conquer the week and let your impact ripple out to the world around you. Let's connect on Instagram and Threads at Dose of Feel Good Podcast. If you're loving the podcast, I'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button and leave a review. Until next time, share your own dose of feel good and never underestimate the power of positivity.